Okay, so before I wreck this movie, which like, how hard was that? It's it's Wreck It Ralph. His name is Wreck. Why is the title Ralph Breaks? No, he wreck. Why? Okay, before I talk about Ralph Breaks the Internet, I just to start off on a more positive, happy note before I rip this movie to shreds. I just wanted to say, holy cow! Thanks for everybody who checked in and watched my last video, the Winnie the Pooh video. As of the recording of this video, in just the span of a few days, it managed to hit 1,000 views, which I genuinely did not see that coming. And like, I've been thinking about doing YouTube for a while, been sort of having a lot of doubts, like didn't know if people would really be interested in what I had to say. But that really surprised me, and I really appreciated that. And a few of you even stuck around and subscribed, which, I that just, it made me feel good. And if you like this video and you want to hear more from me, you could consider subscribing too. Like this, genuinely, thank you for that. I did not see that coming, and it really made my week last week. But anyway, moving aside from that, I guess we'll just rip the band-aid off. Ralph Breaks the Internet is not very good. The first Wreck-It Ralph, like, we're gonna cover that in its own video whenever I get to it, whenever the wheel lands on it. But I actually really like the first Wreck-It Ralph. I was a video game guy growing up, still am. The video game world it presents was really fun. The story was nice. Like Ralph is just a very like easy to like protagonist. Like even though you know what he's doing, like the whole plot kicks off because of his insecurities. It makes sense, right? Like he's and the whole story with him and Vanellope is really nice. King Candy is like the last Disney villain who isn't complete trash, except for like Tamatoa, and even then, Tamatoa is like a side villain. It's like King Candy was like the last main Disney villain who was actually good, and the twist made sense, Hans. But yeah, first Wreck It Ralph, really solid, and I mean, you got Sonic the Hedgehog in a Disney movie. You sold me. But if there's one thing that, like, on the Sonic note, one thing that does kind of bother me, I get that the other video game characters were just there for mostly marketing purposes, but it did always bother me that they tease all of these characters and then you barely really get to interact with them. And like Sonic was like the big one for me, and I don't think they have a single dialogue exchange with him once. So one thing I will give Ralph Breaks the Internet credit for at the start of it is that they do actually like talk to Sonic at the beginning in the as they're starting the plot with Litwack installing the Wi-Fi or the internet. They do actually have like a brief conversation with Sonic. I say I want to give Ralph Breaks the Internet credit for this because in the conversation, Felix says that Sonic is thinking that Litwack is installing a pinball machine, and hearing Sonic and pinball in the same sentence just brings up Sonic Spinball in my mind, and my PTSD triggers, and I'm very sad and a broken husk of a man. As much as I'm about to like make fun of Ralph Breaks the Internet, as much as I don't like this movie, I would genuinely rather sit through it again than play Sonic Spinball. You don't understand. If and I know it's completely off topic, but just trust me, you are not missing anything. Stay away from that game if you value your sanity. Anyway, back on topic. So yeah, the plot kicks off, and it's actually like the setup for the story in this movie as a sequel to the original Wreck-It Ralph. The actual concept that they go with here isn't terrible. So like you have Ralph and Vanellope like still friends after the first movie, and they're like goofing off at night every night when the arcade closes, and they set it up where like you have Ralph. He's pretty much content. Like he got what he wanted at the end of the first movie. He got acceptance. He got friends. Vanellope, like his best friend in the world. He got like his happy ending. Whereas Vanellope, being like the hyperactive kid, has like she was happy for a while. Like yeah, her life at the beginning of the first movie was trash, and she's thankful that that's over, and she is in a much happier place. But the day-to-day playing the same track over and over and over again, it gets old. And so there's like this little bit of tension that you can see right at the start of Ralph wants things to stay the same, Vanellope wants things to change. That's honestly, as a setup for a character conflict, that's not terrible. You can work with that. That's like in a better script, this plot could actually work. The problem is the actual execution of said conflict and the way that it just spirals out of control immediately because they decide to make Ralph and Vanellope complete idiots and completely ignore everything about this universe that we established in the first movie. So like the whole incident that triggers the actual plot just after the internet is installed or whatever, Ralph hears all of Vanellope's like complaining about it being the same thing day in, day out, and he decides he's gonna do something to, switch things up, like a good friend. So instead of going in at night, when the arcade is closed and there are no humans around, he goes in the middle of their workday to create a shortcut on the track, like a new path on the track, which Vanellope then immediately veers off towards at the expense of her player, which leads to the wheel breaking from the strain of like Vanellope doing her thing and the player doing hers, which I don't even want to get into the logistics of how that works with the video game world. That's a whole other thing. But like yeah, and then the wheel breaks and Sugar Rush is immediately put out of order, and it's just like, did we learn nothing from the first movie? Like I get in the first movie why Ralph felt the need to go turbo. Like he was in a desperate situation, or from his perspective, he was like desperate for attention. He was desperately seeking some kind of approval, and he went to extreme measures that were much more understandable. But here, he's in a way better position. Vanellope's in a comfortable position. Why are you going to such drastic measures over something that you very could have easily done at night? And why does Vanellope just completely ignore the fact that she's supposed to be letting the player? It just makes no sense. And then even worse, as Litwick and the kids are talking about this whole incident, like Vanellope and her friends are watching, and Ralph like steps into the frame where if any of those kids had looked over, they would have noticed Wreck-It Ralph inside of Sugar Rush. Let's not even get into the whole like, wait, why isn't he in Wreck-It Ralph over there? Like what happened in the first movie? It's like, seriously, did we just forget that the first movie happened? I don't understand. So yeah, Sugar Rush is inevitably unplugged, and they all get out, which I want to question why Vanellope was able to get out, since they established that glitches can't leave their games in the first one, but I don't know. I'm willing to hear them out on that one. Maybe the reset at the end of the first movie did something in the coding. That's the least of the movie's logic problems. I'm willing to let that one slide. But yeah, so they're cooked. And they have this really weird subplot where Felix and Calhoun adopt all of the Sugar Rush racers so that they can just be, removed from the movie so we can focus on the internet stuff instead of the characters that you actually like from the original. Like, it's a funny subplot on paper, but they don't really do anything with it, and it's really just an excuse to shaft characters that we actually like in favor of this other stuff. So, that's really cool. And then as they're dealing with all that, and Ralph's trying to figure out how to fix this mess, he remembers what Litwack said to the kids earlier about eBay. And so we're gonna, go to the internet, get the new steering wheel to fix it, and then Felix is like, yeah, and I'll cover for you. And again, it's like, did we watch the first movie? You can't just cover for Ralph. He's leaving his game for the second time in 2 days. It's so dumb. And all of this is just the setup. And it makes no sense. And we just ignore all of the established rules. And Ralph is suddenly a complete moron when he wasn't in the first movie. Like, he wasn't the brightest character in the first movie. And he made some, poor choices here and there. But this movie just decides to go the extra mile to make him just lose whatever IQ points he did have and make him this ultra clingy Vanellope is my friend and no one can have her thing. And it's just, why? That's not, I'm not saying he doesn't care a lot about Vanellope, but it was never about, Vanellope was not the center of what he wanted in the first movie. It was a great thing that he found her as a friend, but what he really wanted was just friendship and acceptance in general. And he happened to find that in her, but also in the events of the movie, everybody else sort of worked things out with him. So, I'm not saying he wouldn't value his friendship with Vanellope, but why is he so clingy about it? But I'm sort of getting ahead of myself. Let's get back to just going in, the rough chronological. So we go into the internet, and you get all of the brands, the Google and the YouTube and the Twitter and blah, blah, blah. And the animation is honestly pretty good. I'm not going to fault the animators for this movie. They did their job very well, bringing this internet world to life. And then we get, the first thing with this whole steering wheel plot where they go to, an auction and they don't understand how auctions work, and they accidentally end up paying way too much for that wheel. And honestly, compared to a lot of their other dumb actions in the movie, I'm actually okay with this. It's mildly amusing, and it actually makes sense that they would make this mistake because they've never seen an auction before. They don't know how it works. I'm cool with that. That makes perfect sense. It's, it's fine. It's really frustrating from the perspective of you just made this way harder for yourselves and you didn't need to. But again, they didn't know that. Makes sense. So then they go and meet this Spamly guy, and he has them go to the slaughter race, this very violent online racing game, in order to steal the car of Shank, one of the characters in that game, to basically instantly get all of the money for their steering wheel or whatever. And of course it goes awry, and it's honestly that part the movie does mildly pick up. The car chase sequence and all that is pretty fun. But then just as the movie's starting to win me back, when Shank inevitably gets the car back from them, she then loses all of her cool points by triggering in my opinion, the dumbest aspect of this movie. the BuzzTube nonsense. Oh, good grief. So, in order to get the money for this steering wheel, she has them go to BuzzTube, not YouTube, which, like, that's a whole other. If we're gonna show Google and YouTube, why are we not allowed to use them? Why do we use BuzzTube and Knowsmore? Like, no one's using them. They're using Google and YouTube. I don't care what this movie tries to say about, oh, BuzzTube is like the ultimate video site. No, it's YouTube. You're lying. It's YouTube. No one cares. Like, it's YouTube. I don't, like, why are we showing Google and YouTube and then using their, like, B tier equivalents? I don't get it. But that's a whole other issue. Main thing is, this whole BuzzTube subplot is just like, one, it's cringy and trying to chase internet trends, which is kind of like trying to swim against the current of a river. Like, chasing internet trends is not going to work for a movie because you're instantly dating yourself by doing that. Like, you are dating this within the movie 2018 when this came out. Second of all, most of these videos are just really painful to watch. But third of all, the most important, like, nonsense with this, there is absolutely no way on earth that Ralph managed to make all of these videos and get all of those hearts to, like, get all of that money. There's no way he accomplished all of that in under 8 hours. Like, first of all, the idea of getting all of those things to go viral, as someone who is now starting on YouTube, I could see you getting lucky with like a one-hit wonder, sure. But you're not gonna be able to just invade the internet with all of these videos at once and all of them just instantly getting everyone. Like, that's just not gonna happen. Second of all, just the logistics of making all of those videos in just a few hours is physically impossible. Like, he makes like dozens of these. Like, they're showing, like, there's this whole montage showing all of those different videos. And, like, if they had like a few days or like a week or something, then I could see, like, okay, he's overworking himself, but I could see him pulling it off, maybe. But in not even 8 hours, like, basically in the span of a school day, you're telling me he made all of these and they all trended at exactly the same time? And no. That's genuinely, logically impossible. And it's also cringe and bad, and I don't like it. It's not very good. I'm moving on. Thankfully, in the middle of this insanity, we do get the one part of this movie that I genuinely really like, and it starts off in like a cynical direction, you know, because it's the whole Disney princess thing. Like, Vanellope's trying to advertise the Ralph videos, which that's a whole other thing. Like, just brief little side note here. Ever notice that in this movie promoting the internet and corporations and the Disney empire, you ever notice that everyone carrying an ad is a protagonist? And both times that we see an ad blocker, it's portrayed as an angry bully or literal stormtroopers at the Disney website. That's really interesting. But anyway, she's going and doing that. She goes to the Disney website and it's this whole, like, yeah, look at us, corporate Disney, like, look at all of our IPs, look how rich we are, yay us. And that's, you know, I love Walt Disney Animation Studios. I do not love corporate Disney. But it is in this incredibly cynical corporate flexing that we do get the Disney princess subplot where Vanellope accidentally wanders in and they're all hanging out. And out of nowhere, after like the last hour of nonsense you've just had to sit through, suddenly the movie's writing does a complete 180. Like it suddenly shoots through the roof and it's genuinely funny and like really good because you have like all of these really clever jokes about like all of the horrible things that the Disney princesses suffer in their movies that they're just casually naming as Vanellope is increasingly horrified. And then like they all hang out and she shows them like modern clothing. They have all these like fun t-shirts with like different references and all that. Like there was one that was like it's like there was one that was Sleeping Beauty. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was like something about her being like a like queen of sleep or whatever. It was really funny. But yeah, that all of that is really funny. And then like they sort of parody the whole concept of the Disney I Want song, where they like ask her like what is her heart's desire, and Ariel Ariel Joe's the example, like immediately breaking into song with the lights and everything, and Vanellope like freaks out, like what is going on? And they're like, it's just what you do. Go like find meaningful water and just sing your heart out. And she's like, you're weird, but okay. And then later, after more of the Ralph nonsense, she does exactly that and breaks into song with A Place Called Slaughter Race. And it's genuinely well written and like well sung, good music, and incredibly funny. like all of these other characters just singing along with her without a care in the world, including the Slaughter Race people. Like it's completely out of nowhere and bonkers, but it kind of works. Like I don't understand. It honestly feels like they had one guy on the writing staff who like snuck all of this really clever stuff in while everybody else just stuck to the corporate mandated script. Like I don't know. Maybe that's just my conspiracy theory. I don't know a lot about the writing of this movie. That's how it comes across. It's like you had one guy who had all the clever ideas and like snuck them in when no one was noticing. But yeah, that's all really fun. But then it leads into the breakdown in Ralph and Vanellope's friendship, because Vanellope's song about what she wants isn't really about Sugar Rush anymore. She wants to move on to Slaughter Race because it gave her, like what she was looking for at the beginning, like a game where she never knows what's gonna happen next. It's never the same thing every time, and again, that's not a terrible concept for a conflict. And I know there's going to be people in the comments saying something about like the whole she's going turbo thing, and yeah, there is sort of that, but I'm willing to kind of let that one slide a bit because Vanellope isn't nearly as essential to her game as Ralph is to his. Maybe there'd be some people wondering why Vanellope suddenly shows up in Slaughter Race out of nowhere, but I don't know. There are video games doing crossover stuff all the time. I mean, they're like, I can honestly let that one slide. That's not a big deal to me. It's definitely weird, but I don't think it's a universe-breaking plot hole like all the other stuff I talked about. But anyway, Ralph hears all of this because he was calling her and his thing was muted for some reason. And so he hears all of this stuff about Vanellope wanting to move on to Slaughter Race. And instead of, hearing her out on this and understanding her perspective and recognizing that she has different interests from him, which Shank literally points out in that conversation, he decides, no, Shank, this completely reasonable person who literally helped him by giving him the whole BuzzTube thing going, this completely reasonable person who has done absolutely nothing wrong or suspect. No, she's clearly brainwashed Vanellope because Vanellope would never disagree with me ever, as if the entire first movie wasn't full of Ralph and Vanellope bickering back and forth. And this movie has them bickering back and forth. Yeah, no. Vanellope disagreeing with him on this is clearly all Shank's fault, and he needs to do something about it. So what does he do about it? Oh, I know. Let's go to the dark side of the internet and grab a virus to go into Slaughter Race and wreak havoc and just assume, it's all gonna be fine. It's just gonna do a couple minor things, because as we all know, viruses are very stable and don't cause chaos. Actually, now that I'm thinking about this, I just remembered the whole thing with the cybugs in the first movie was literally them basically being a virus destroying the game. What did you think was gonna happen? Again, did we just not watch the same first movie? Anyway. And also, yeah, it's a virus that scans for insecurities. Did you just forget Vanellope was a glitch? What did you think was gonna happen, my guy? It boggles my mind that they made Ralph this stupid. But to his credit, once things start to go really haywire, he does admit his mistake and runs in, saves Vanellope, whatever. And when he tells her what went wrong, she very understandably is mad at him, takes his special hero medal that she made for him back in the first movie, and throws it, and it breaks, and it's this should be a really big emotional fallout and everything, but I feel nothing because this whole thing is just so stupid. And then, of course, the virus still hasn't been dealt with yet. So the virus sees Ralph and scans for insecurities and sees his, character insecurity as a programming insecurity because sure, and makes all of these Ralph clones that are then turned into an army that are all obsessed with Vanellope, and because we need a big epic climax. And so now a single internet virus has just single-handedly wrecked the entire internet. I thought the whole video trends thing was stretching credibility, but the idea of a single tiny virus being big enough to destroy the entire internet, now we're just being what are we even doing here? And then it turns to this giant Ralph monster, and again, well animated. The animators did a good job. I am not gonna criticize them. They did well. I'm just really baffled at the writing here. And Ralph and Vanellope are sort of forced to team up, and in the midst of the chaos, they reconcile, and Ralph does he confronts all of those Ralph clones and spells out the message of the movie in the most blatant, obvious way possible, because apparently kids wouldn't pick up on the message otherwise. Of you don't own her. She's your friend, but you don't get to control everything she does, and yada yada yada. And the clones immediately accept this and vanish, and it's again, the idea behind the conflict is sound, and the message is good. Learn how to communicate properly in a relationship without controlling people. I don't hate the message that they're going for. It's just that the way they go about doing it just feels so contrived and doesn't get the characters at all and breaks the established lore. It's just I don't understand, but they do all this, the clones instantly evaporate, and the internet's just back online immediately because this movie doesn't know how the internet works despite being entirely about the internet. And then we actually, once again, the Disney princesses come back in to sort of save Ralph. I mean the movie, I mean Ralph. And you get like this fun sequence of them using all of their powers and stuff with like Elsa's eyes and the colors of the wind with Pocahontas and Snow White's dress and all this stuff, you know. It's fun. I don't even love all of these characters. Like, I'm not a huge Frozen guy. We'll get to that another day. But their use here is completely fine. And it's a nice little bit of like cute, fun references without feeling like cynical corporate stuff like all the other Disney stuff. The Disney princess stuff in this movie is genuinely good. But that said, wrap it up. Ralph and Vanellope take like the broken pieces of the hero badge and decide to just each keep a half of it, so that even though Vanellope's leaving, they'll always, you know, be together in a sense. And, you know, I'll give the movie that. That's a nice little emotional thing. And also, as much as I don't like the Felix and Calhoun getting sidelined, I will say the joke about parenting at the end was pretty genius. Like Ralph goes back and all of the Sugar Rush racers are totally nice now, and that like security guy from the first movie is like, how did you two tame them? And they're like, well, what you do is, and the racers run by so that you don't hear it. And he's like, wow, if only every parent could hear what I just heard. Like, I'll admit that actually got me in the theater. That was pretty funny. So, yeah. And then the movie's over. So, overall, is it the worst Disney movie ever? No. It's got some redeeming elements, like the animation, the fun stuff with the Disney princesses, and the hilarious A Place Called Slaughter Race song. And occasionally there's some good humor here and there. I like that we talked to Sonic this time instead of completely ignoring his existence. It's like I said with the holiday special. It's not completely terrible. Like, you can find things to like about this. And if you genuinely like this movie, I mean, sorry if this felt really aggressive. I'm just being honest. I don't really like it, but if you like it, that's totally fine. And I can kind of see the appeal. To me personally, though, it really doesn't work. But so overall, I'm gonna say this is a D tier. It's not the worst thing ever, but for me, D is where I put like movies that I don't like, but I can see redeeming elements of. F tier is for like the absolute worst. Like I actively am against it. But D tier, it's like, you know, I don't like it, but it's not a complete waste of my time. There's good things here. There's good things in Ralph Breaks the Internet, but I don't like it very much. And so that's pretty much it. Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you like this video and you want to see more, leave a like, subscribe, all the things. And normally this is the point where I would transition over to the wheel that I'm spinning, but as I said back in my holiday special video when I was starting this project, we're now approaching the month of October, and I intentionally set aside The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad because I wanted that one to be in October. So that's what we're covering next. See you then.